been a while since I updated this channel. Originally, I wanted to focus on expanding my other channels and businesses and also focus on my health, but ironically, after all these months, I now have neither of those. But rest assured, everything is okay. Now, this month's investments are a little bit on the light side, and the reason for that is that my YouTube conglomerate that I've described in previous videos is having a rough spot right now. In fact, we're just barely holding on to the ashes of it. My flagship channel got demonetized and it's having a hard time, but I'm cautiously optimistic that the revenue can be replaced. Unfortunately, during that process, about half of the video editing mercenaries abandoned ship, but I've been through worse and I'll get through this too. Regardless though, it's affected this month's investment, so the amount invested this month is a little on the lighter side, but nevertheless, there's still a lot to discuss. I won't go over most of these tickers. A lot of them are biotech companies that would probably take half an hour minimum just to explain what's going on with them. The two I'm going to focus on here today are VYM, which is a Vanguard dividend ETF fund that got about half of this month's investment. And the reason I do that is because, frankly, outside of biotech, which even then I don't think I'm very good, but outside of biotech, I don't like to pretend that I really know which stocks to pick. And I know I do like dividends, so I'd rather just, do half and half, or half for ones that I pick and I focus on for growth, and the other half I just throw into an index or an ETF, and I get the dividends, and that's it. I don't have to think about it. And that way, too, there's a good amount of diversification. Now, the one stock I want to focus on particular, and if I could these days, I would put just about every single free cent I have into it, is QURE. What's interesting about this company is that right now, it's my favorite gene therapy company. It's got a market cap of 1.6 billion, and that'll come important later when I explain a few things that are going on. So first things first, they have a hemophilia gene therapy, specifically for hemophilia B. And what's interesting about that is hemophilia B, frankly, doesn't have as many patients, potential patients, as hemophilia A. I think only 6,000 in the United States and Europe. But assuming each patient goes through about $1 million treatment, which isn't unheard of. So for example, another company I used to have that was now acquired by Novartis, Avexis, data just came out. They were charging about $2.1 million for their gene therapy for spinal muscular atrophy. And the first quarter, just the first quarter of revenues from that was about 60% higher than what people expected. Total, I think, of $160 million, and most of the analysts were expecting $90 million. There had been a lot of concern over what seems to be the very high price of gene therapies. I mean, again, you'd think, wow, $2.1 million. But what's interesting about gene therapy and makes it so exciting to me is that once you successfully undergo a gene therapy, that's it. For the most part, you're usually cured, or it's treated well enough to the point where many people don't have to worry about it any longer. So, in the case of hemophilia B, an example of this is that usually the patients have to go through a protein replacement therapy, and the stats point to it costs about $500,000 to $750,000 every single year. So I know a lot of people like to complain in politics about the high prices of medications, treatments, surgeries, everything to do with healthcare. But overall, gene therapy saves money, right? So it makes a lot more sense just to pay $2 million up front than $500,000 or maybe even more for the many, many years a patient with hemophilia B could have. So I think in time people will understand that even though there's a big upfront cost to gene therapy, it's incredible that how it saves medical resources and lives, and so people will see that it's much cheaper just to pay the price tag on gene therapy. I believe one of the Romanov children in Russia during the First World War and before suffered from hemophilia, and perhaps if the Tsar had a more fitting heir, history could have gone differently. And it's great to see that all these years later we're finally putting a cap on hemophilia A and also hemophilia B. Now for QURE, which makes me really just want to put every single cent I have in this company, even though I know better, is the fact that, if you do the basic back of the napkin math, you assume a $1 million treatment, could be more, could be less, 6,000 patients, you're talking $6 billion in potential revenue. And with the current market cap of 1.6, the things in phase 3, so far, my opinion, data's looking good. It makes me really optimistic about this company. Obviously, again, there's political concerns about price controls in the United States. I think just about everyone will pay the price necessary for this. And then, more interestingly, but also unfortunately not in phase 3, but just barely entering phase 1 now, is their Huntington's treatment, which is really incredible because Huntington's, if you suffer for that, there's really just about nothing that can be done for you. For those of you who don't know what Huntington's is, I think it was fairly well portrayed in House MD with the character Six. I think she had Huntington's disease in that show. So anyway, if you're talking about 70,000 patients, even just assuming it's a $100,000 treatment, so for example, I found some literature that the annual cost of a person with Huntington's, depending on the progression of the disease, can run anywhere from a few $1,000s to $50,000, $80,000 a year. So 70,000 people, $100,000 treatment, could be more, could be less. I don't know how much it'll be priced, but you know, you're talking $7 billion. You add those two up, and you know, this company is really, really looking incredible, minus the people who are spooked by the political talk about controlling the price of pharmaceuticals and other treatments. I think a lot of people suspect that this company will be bought out, and I can see that as well. Part of me wishes actually this company wouldn't be bought out, because I would love to wait, you know, to see these kinds of revenues. I mean, do you think it's really worth being taken out for 2 times the current price, maybe more, when you can wait for, you know, potentially 5-6 years down the line, $13 billion in revenue from all this, maybe more, maybe less? All these are extreme napkin math scenarios. You know, I'm not really in any rush. You know, buyout's interesting and buyout's great, but I don't see the pain in waiting either. Either way, this is definitely one I'm very interested in. Now, that being said, everything I've talked about in this video and also the tickers I briefly mentioned at the beginning, I'm telling you, do not copy what I'm buying. If you don't take the time to read, if you don't take the time to be educated and make your own decisions, it's not right to follow me and what I buy just mindlessly. Remember, I'm a guy that made list videos and meme videos on YouTube. For all you know, and possibly likely, I have no idea what I'm talking about, so do not copy what I'm buying. The point of these videos is only just to document and kind of vlog what I'm doing, just because I like filming videos and making a record for myself. The only thing I'm talking about is what I'm doing and my thoughts. I'm not making any recommendations. I don't want you to do anything in particular. I can only speak for myself. Anyway, as a schedule for more regular content, I think I'll be doing these monthly updates for what I'm buying. They seem fun and easy to do, and it's a good way of keeping engaged on this channel. I hope in the future I'll be able to show bigger purchases. But in the meantime, I'm gonna have to get my YouTube conglomerate of channels back up and running. These are very hard times for me right now. And also, too, I have to admit, everything with stocks is spooky to me. Frankly, I see the economy as one big, massive joke right now. The interest rates, the slowing industrial growth, if you can even call it growth. You know, I wonder if they're gonna let this thing go into recession or go into negative interest rates like Europe. Either way, this thing is just a massive garbage fire, and there aren't many good places to be right now. But I feel like I have to continue in face of what's the alternative, you know? Whether you get wiped out by inflation, negative interest rates, or a market correction on a massive scale. You can't really predict what's gonna happen, and there's only so much you can do. So, I've got a sizable cash reserve, and then even more also in the short-term T-bills, which is kind of a pseudo-cash, depending on the ETF you have it in. So, I'm eager to see what the future holds. That's all for now.